Welcome to the Career Research Channel. Please take a quick second to like and subscribe right now. It really helps us keep bringing you these in-depth analyses.
Yeah, please do. It makes a huge difference for the channel.
So imagine going to sleep on the night of April 30th, right? You're, say, the CEO of a major European automaker. Or maybe you're just a consumer and you're planning to buy a luxury SUV the very next morning.
Right, you're just expecting business as usual.
Exactly. You expect the market to operate exactly as it did the day before. The math is stable, the supply chains are humming. But then you wake up on May 1st, and the President of the United States has essentially outlawed the fundamental pricing structure of your entire industry.
Overnight. Literally overnight.
Literally overnight, without any warning. I mean, it was a megaton economic shock.
It really was. We spend so much time, modeling gradual economic trends, quarterly forecasts, phased rollouts. We completely forget how much of global trade relies purely on the assumption of basic predictability.
And May 1st, 2026 just shattered that assumption. The Trump administration announced a sudden, unannounced 25% tariff on all automobiles imported from the European Union.
Which completely blindsided the financial media.
Sent global markets into an absolute tailspin. So our mission today for this deep dive is to break down the mechanics of exactly what happened. We're going to look at the hidden geopolitical trigger that actually forced Washington's hand.
Because it wasn't really about cars, ultimately.
Right. And we'll get into the structural nightmare now facing German automakers, the massive unexpected windfall of those hands to Korean car brands.
Which is a huge twist.
It is. But crucially, we're going to explore why Korea needs to immediately brace for impact rather than, popping any champagne.
Yeah, every single assumption about international commerce is being rewritten right now. And to really grasp the severity of this, you have to look at the sheer scale of what Washington just dropped on the European auto industry.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because I think, numbers like 10%, 20%, 50% get thrown around in political speeches all the time.
Oh, constantly.
Right. And it's very easy for you as the listener to just become numb to the scale. So normally, the U.S. import tariff on a standard passenger car sits at 2.5%.
Barely noticeable, really.
Yeah. And even when trade relations have soured in the past, threats usually hovered in the, 10 to 15% range?
Yeah, exactly. So we are talking about a tenfold increase in the standard tax applied at the border. Tenfold.
That's just wild.
To understand why this is so catastrophic, you really have to look at the mechanics of automotive profit margins. I mean, this isn't the software industry where you're operating on 70% margins.
Right, it's not an app store.
Right. Automaking is incredibly capital intensive. A highly successful premium automaker might operate on an 8 to 10% profit margin in a really good year.
Wow, just 8%.
Yeah, and many volume brands operate on 4 or 5%.
So if your profit buffer is only 8%, and the U.S. government suddenly slaps a 25% gross tax on the total value of the vehicle, the second it rolls off the cargo ship in New Jersey, the math doesn't just get tight, it structurally breaks.
It shatters. It turns every single imported vehicle into a massive financial loss. You cannot optimize your way out of a 25% top-line tax.
You can't just buy cheaper tires.
Exactly. You can't just negotiate slightly cheaper rubber for your tires or, automate a few factory jobs in Munich to make up the difference. A tenfold tariff increase is just blunt force trauma to the entire business model.
Which totally explains the immediate market violence we saw. Within hours of the announcement, European equities suffered a brutal sell-off. Automaker stocks were in free fall globally.
Currency markets were going crazy, too.
Right. Wild, volatile swings as institutional investors just scrambled to price in the damage.
Yeah.
This goes way beyond a routine trade dispute. This is essentially an economic declaration of war on a core European export.
It is. Now, publicly, the administration's stated rationale was classic America First doctrine.
Right, the official story.
Yeah. They pointed to the ongoing trade imbalance and accused the EU of failing to honor past economic agreements.
The public framing is always transactional, right?
Always. Washington points to the massive trade deficit with Europe, specifically in the manufacturing sector, and they frame the tariff as this necessary corrective measure to protect American industry.
So if you only look at the press briefings, it's a pure numbers game about leveling the playing field.
Right, but that's just the surface.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because when you dig into our sources and look at the timeline, the trade deficit was just a convenient public justification. The actual detonator for this May 1st shockwave was this Iran conflict.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of pressure diplomacy.
Walk us through that. How do cars in the Middle East connect?
Well, at the exact moment this tariff was drafted, tensions in the Middle East had reached an absolute peak. The U.S. was establishing a very hardline security posture regarding Iran,
Okay.
and Washington expected its core European allies to just lockstep and align with that posture.
But the EU didn't fall in line. According to the internal diplomatic readouts, Brussels offered what Washington viewed as, well, lukewarm half measures.
Yeah, they wanted to preserve their own diplomatic off-ramps. They didn't want to commit fully.
And that enraged the administration. But, and this is what I don't get, how do you force a sovereign allied bloc to change its foreign policy?
You find their most sensitive economic pressure point and you squeeze it until something breaks.
Ah.
For Europe, and particularly for Germany, which is the political and economic engine of the EU, that pressure point is automotive exports.
But wait, how does a government legally execute that? Like, how does the administration connect a Middle East security issue to a unilateral tax on luxury sedans sitting in a California showroom? Don't you need Congress to approve massive new taxes?
You would think so, right? But they utilize trade loopholes designed for national emergencies.
Oh, like Section 232.
Exactly. Historically, mechanisms like Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act allow the executive branch to bypass Congress entirely.
Just skip them.
Completely.
Yeah.
They can impose tariffs if imports are deemed a threat to national security.
Even if it's cars.
Right. Whether or not German cars actually threaten American security is totally beside the point. The loophole provides the legal mechanism to weaponize access to the American consumer market.
So Washington is basically punishing a core military ally by dressing up a foreign policy grievance as a trade dispute.
That is the modern playbook. You take a diplomatic failure and you meet it with the sharpest possible economic blow. The U.S. is pushing the EU to the absolute edge of a cliff.
Signaling that if they don't align on global security, they will lose access to the most lucrative consumer market on Earth.
Exactly. It's leverage.
Let's look at the collateral damage of that strategy because the real-world impact is just staggering.
Yeah.
This creates an absolute nightmare for German automakers.
A total nightmare.
We are talking about the premium titans of the industry here, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and Audi. They have spent decades building massive market share in the United States, and suddenly they are trapped in an impossible dilemma.
Yeah, they really only have two levers to pull, and both of them trigger a disaster.
Right.
Option A is passing the cost on to the consumer. If that 25% tariff means an imported SUV now costs $12,000 more to bring into the country, you just add 12 grand to the sticker price.
But if you do that, your sales volumes are going to crater.
Immediately.
I mean, an American consumer who is perfectly happy to finance a car at $60,000, they're going to walk right out of the dealership when the exact same car is suddenly priced at $72,000 overnight.
Nobody's paying that. So that leaves option B.
Which is what?
The automaker decides to swallow the cost of the tariff to keep the sticker price competitive.
But as we established with the profit margins earlier, if you're making 8%, swallowing a 25% tax completely obliterates your operating profit.
You are essentially selling cars at a massive loss just to maintain your market share.
Which will absolutely destroy your stock price and outrage your shareholders.
It's an unwinnable scenario.
Hang on, though. I want to play devil's advocate. BMW and Mercedes have massive, sprawling manufacturing plants right here in the U.S.
They do.
Yeah, BMW's facility in Spartanburg, South Carolina is one of their biggest in the world. Mercedes builds heavily in Alabama. If they are assembling these vehicles locally, employing American workers, why wouldn't that local assembly shield them from an import tariff?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you see why local final assembly isn't a magical shield. It comes down to how modern supply chains actually function.
Okay, give me an example.
Think of it like owning a high-end burger joint in the U.S. You might assemble the burger in your local kitchen, toast the bun, serve it to the customer.
Sure.
But your prime beef, the core ingredient that actually makes the burger valuable, is flown in daily from Germany.
Oh, I see. And if the government suddenly taxes that beef at 25% at the border, it doesn't matter where you assemble the burger. Your menu's profitability still collapses.
That is exactly what happens with these automakers. Yes, the chassis might be welded and painted in South Carolina, but the highly engineered proprietary components...
The expensive stuff.
Right. The high-performance engines, the advanced transmissions, the specialized electronics that make a luxury car, those are still largely manufactured in Europe and imported across the Atlantic in massive volumes.
So the U.S. customs agents aren't just taxing fully built cars rolling off ships. They are slapping that 25% tariff on the critical high-value components feeding those American factories.
Exactly. And furthermore, the local U.S. plants mostly handle volume models, like midsize SUVs.
Oh, okay.
The ultra-luxury models, the flagship sedans, the bespoke performance variants, the vehicles with the absolute highest profit margins are almost exclusively built in Germany and exported whole.
So the most lucrative segment of their business is just fully 100% exposed to the tariff.
Completely exposed.
And obviously, Brussels isn't just going to take this lying down. The EU is already preparing a massive slate of retaliatory tariffs targeting U.S. exports.
Yeah, we are watching the real-time escalation into a full-blown transatlantic trade war.
It feels like the era of frictionless trade between Western allies is functionally suspended.
It is, which fundamentally alters the competitive dynamics of the U.S. auto market. I mean, when one massive player is suddenly crippled by external forces, the vacuum is filled almost immediately.
Right. Because if that consumer walks away from the $72,000 German SUV because the price jumped overnight, they don't just decide to walk to work.
Right, they still need a car.
The demand doesn't disappear. They literally drive across the street to a different dealership. And who is sitting across the street with a suddenly massive structural price advantage?
The Korean automakers.
Yes.
For Hyundai and Kia, this May 1st shockwave is a sudden golden window of opportunity.
Because they aren't currently carrying that 25% sandbag. It's like a foot race, right?
Mm-hmm.
One runner is suddenly forced to carry this heavy weight, allowing the trailing runner to just catch up effortlessly.
That's a perfect way to look at it. Their pricing models remain completely intact while their biggest European rivals are bleeding out.
But having a price advantage is only half the battle, right? I mean, historically, it's been incredibly difficult to convince a loyal BMW or Audi driver to switch brands.
Yeah.
Are Korean automakers actually positioned to capture that specific high-end consumer?
They are arguably better positioned right now than at any point in their history.
Really?
Oh, yeah. 10 or 15 years ago, a price advantage wouldn't have been enough to pull a German luxury buyer into a Korean vehicle. But Hyundai and Kia have spent the last decade aggressively closing the prestige gap.
Especially with the Genesis brand.
Genesis is the key here. They have systematically targeted the U.S. premium market with design, build quality, and technology that goes toe-to-toe with the European titans.
They really have.
They have earned sustained critical recognition in the U.S. market. They aren't viewed as the budget alternative anymore. They are viewed as a legitimate peer in the luxury segment.
And you add in their incredibly aggressive push into the EV market, where their platforms are consistently rated among the most efficient and fastest charging in the world.
Exactly.
So you have a consumer who is already intrigued by the design and the technology of a Genesis or, say, a high-end Kia EV. And suddenly, thanks to Washington's geopolitical fight with Europe, the Korean vehicle is functionally thousands of dollars cheaper than its German equivalent.
It accelerates consumer adoption drastically. Market observers are already modeling a significant, measurable short-term uptick in U.S. market share for Korean brands.
Specifically in those highly profitable luxury sedan and premium SUV segments.
Right. The tariffs effectively neutralize the legacy brand loyalty the Germans have relied on for decades.
It's literally Europe's geopolitical crisis instantly transforming into Korea's quarterly earnings windfall. You can easily imagine the executives in Seoul wanting to celebrate this massive, completely unexpected advantage.
Oh, they probably do. But that would be a catastrophic mistake.
Really?
Yeah, this is absolutely not the moment to pop the champagne.
So what does this all mean? Why shouldn't they celebrate capturing all this new market share?
Because the very same geopolitical weapon that just slashed Europe's auto industry can pivot towards Seoul with terrifying speed.
Right. I guess if you're standing next to a guy who just got hit by a wrecking ball, you don't celebrate the extra space you have. You realize you're standing in the path of a wrecking ball.
That's exactly it. The current administration in Washington operates on leverage and metrics. And right now, Korea has a glaring, highly visible vulnerability.
It is.
A ballooning trade surplus with the United States.
Ugh. And as we've seen time and time again, any country ally or not that extracts large asymmetrical profits from the American consumer market immediately lands at the top of Washington's watch list.
Yep. If Korean auto exports surge because European exports collapse, that trade surplus is only going to grow larger.
It paints a massive target on their back.
It does. But the deeper threat goes back to the Iran precedent we just analyzed. The May 1st shock proves that failing to align with U.S. global security policy brings sudden, devastating economic consequences.
And Korea is a linchpin U.S. ally, situated in one of the most complex geopolitical theaters on the planet.
Exactly. If a sudden diplomatic crisis erupts in the Asian theater, whether it involves supply chain security, regional military posturing, or technology blockades, and Seoul hesitates to fully align with Washington's preferred hardline stance, well, the U.S. administration has just proven it will not hesitate to use Section 232-style trade tariffs as a weapon.
Just for immediate compliance.
Yeah.
So the moment Seoul tries to walk a diplomatic tightrope, the U.S. could drop a 25% tariff on Korean autos by claiming it's a matter of national security. The precedent is firmly established.
This raises an important question. Knowing that the rules of global trade have fundamentally changed, what is the actual survival strategy for Korea's auto industry?
How do you defuse an economic time bomb when your entire national growth model relies on exporting manufactured goods?
Right, because you can't just hope Washington stays in a good mood. You have to structurally change your exposure.
So what's the move?
The only reliable insurance policy against this breed of sudden protectionism is deep, rapid localization. Korea has to drastically accelerate its expansion of U.S. domestic production.
We're talking about completely decoupling the supply chain. You can't just ship engines from Ulsan to be dropped into chassis in Georgia.
No, because as we saw with the German automakers in the burger analogy, if the high-value components cross an ocean, they are vulnerable to the tariff blade.
So Korea must build the entire ecosystem on American soil.
Everything. Battery manufacturing, critical mineral processing, software integration, and final assembly.
They need to create tens of thousands of highly visible American jobs and secure the undisputed Made in USA label for their vehicles.
Because it's politically incredibly difficult for an administration to drop a punitive tariff on a company that is currently employing massive swaths of voters in key swing states.
Localizing production isn't just about saving on shipping costs anymore. It is literal geopolitical armor.
Relying on a model where you build the wealth in Korea and ship the product to America is dangerously exposed. They have to integrate themselves so deeply into the American domestic economy that attacking Korean automakers essentially means attacking American workers.
It requires a staggering amount of capital expenditure, though, and it completely rewrites the profit models they've relied on for decades.
It does. But as May 1st proved, the alternative is waking up one morning and finding out your entire U.S. business model has been outlawed.
Yeah, the transition from a globalized, export-driven economy to the localized fortress economy model is really going to define the next decade of industrial strategy.
Without doubt.
Which brings us to the core of what we've uncovered today. If you are going to take away 3 critical insights from this deep dive, these are the facts you need to remember. Number 1. The U.S. dropped a 25% tariff bomb on EU automobiles, proving that Washington will now explicitly weaponize access to its consumer market to punish allies over foreign policy disagreements.
All right.
Number 2, the European auto industry is facing structural devastation, trapped between killing their sales volume or wiping out their profit margins, while the global economy stares down a transatlantic trade war.
And number 3.
Number 3, Korea's automakers are perfectly positioned to reap a massive short-term windfall, but they must urgently localize their supply chains and production inside the U.S. before they become the very next target on Washington's list.
It is a fundamentally destabilized landscape, and I think there is a broader, frankly chilling implication here for you, the listener, to ponder as we wrap up.
What's that?
Well, if unilateral economic tariffs are now the standard go-to weapon for enforcing global military and security alignment, will the concept of free trade even exist in a decade?
Wow.
Or are we entering an era where every single consumer purchase you make, from the phone in your pocket to the car in your driveway, is ultimately just a geopolitical vote?
That is heavy. It completely reframes what it means to participate in the economy. You aren't just buying transportation to get to work. You might be unknowingly funding the fallout of a Middle East security dispute.
Exactly.
The massive, predictable ocean of the global economy is gone, and we are all just navigating the shockwaves now.
You really are.
Well, this has been Career Research. Please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.